Okay, bar taping 101. So, we have handlebar here that we set up all yesterday, and already done one side of taping, so that is a good base to do the mirror image of that on this side to make sure everything's nice and balanced and uniform. And that's set up, and then we have our basic parts that we need. One, roll the bar tape. With the bar tape, a little bit of shim piece of tape, usually about 3 inches long, and that's important in the setup. 3 end caps. Normally with bar taping, a little bit of the bar tape is stuck into the bottom of the handlebar. The cap goes over it, holds it in place, and then you continue taping. I don't like to use these because, one, they end up breaking, falling out, getting lost, and then you have one missing, or you have mismatched ones because you can't find another pair. So I found a way of working without them, so I just ditched them. And also with handlebar tape usually comes finishing tape. This is what gets wrapped around the bar up here when you finish wrapping, close to the stem. Just tie everything up. You look nice, neat, professional, all that good stuff. In addition to that, we need 2 other things for this. One, a roll of electrical tape. In this case, our bar tape is black, so we're using black electrical tape. The great thing about electrical tape, 1, cheap. 2, you can get it in pretty much any color to match the bar tape that you're putting on, which is nice. And we use this in addition to the finishing tape because, like I said, it's a lot cheaper, and we make sure we have enough to actually finish the tape off and make sure it looks nice, as well as put on there so it will last. And the only other thing we need for this is a pair of scissors to finish off our tape at the very end. So, starting with the bar tape, what we're going to do is unwind a section of at least a couple of feet. So we have to start with not completely unraveling it because it can become a little bit unwieldy to deal with. But take that, and we're going to just lay that on top of the bar down here at the drop. And so the one edge is lined up exactly with the end of the bar. And then we're going to wrap almost 1/2 ways around the bar, overlapping the tape, and as tight as we can manage, making sure that we're lined up nice and flush off the edge of the tape all the way around the end of the bar. So that looks nice. Just work that a little bit, make sure it's nice and snug and holding in place. Some tapes will make this a little bit easier than others. This tape has a little bit of a sticky backing on it. Some tapes have full outright adhesive with a paper backing on the back. So you peel away the paper backing and they stick to the bar, making this a little bit easier. It just kind of depends on the manufacturer what you end up with, or personal preference. So once we got that started, then what we're going to do is we're going to keep on winding around the bar with an effort of overlapping our previous wind roughly 50% of the way. Too much more than that, and you have the potential for a gap forming, and then with the use of your bike over the season, sweat on the bars, rain, other things, that the tape can actually get loose if it's spread too far apart, and if it's too tight, then you're not going to have enough tape to reach up to the top here. So about 50% does that, and also trying to, as we do each subsequent wrap, keep that uniform the whole way up. And also all the way around as we're going. So, it's nice and aesthetically pleasing, as well as functional. And we're pulling this nice and tight as we can. It's Some tapes will differ. This is a synthetic material, so it's got a little bit of elasticity to it. So as I pull it, you can see it's stretching out. So I'm pulling just enough to do that, but I'm not yanking on it or pulling it too hard so it snaps or breaks. Either kind of tape, the adhesive or the sticky back. If you find you're making a little bit of a mistake, you're not keeping the spacing uniform, the overlap uniform, you just back up a little bit. The thing is, regardless, you want to keep a little bit of tension constantly on the tape, because otherwise everything you just did has the potential to unravel. And coming around a curve here, you will see a little bit your winding will come a little bit uneven. Obviously out here, the overlap will be a little bit greater than on the inside of the curve. But so I'm trying to keep the outside curve around the 50% overlap mark. And also didn't point out originally, but the reason we're starting and wrapping away from the bike is that basically as you're riding the bike, down here on the drops or up here on top, your tendency when you're riding is for your hands to rotate out away from the bike. And so by wrapping it in that direction, any of the twisting you have on the bars is going to be in the same direction as the tape itself. So you will be simply tightening the tape as you ride, rather than if you round it in the reverse order, then you'd be loosening it every time you twist it, and then you would get those gaps and the tape would, you know, come apart. Wonderful job you spent all the time on would be for naught, and you'd have to just do it again. So now we're getting up here towards the STI. As you see, I pulled back the brake hood because we're going to try and wrap nice and tightly all around here to hide all of the mechanism underneath here, the actual cable housing, all of that stuff, so we don't have to look at it. And this is also the point where we're going to be using that tiny little shim piece here. As you come around here, the shim piece is designed to lie on the back and hide that band that clamps the STI or the brake lever to your bar. This particular one, for whatever reason, the bar doesn't have adhesive, but this shim piece does have adhesive. So we're just going to peel that off the back and remove that. And that goes, like I said, right on the back there. And what I'm going to do here really quick, just pull this off here. Just show you how I'm setting this up. So we have, you can see it's set up right in the middle of it, and the adhesive is just going to allow it to wrap around and then hide the side of that, and the rest of the tape will cover up all the gaps around here on that, so that when the hood is rolled back, you have no exposed gaps underneath. Back there. Turn that back up. And keep going there. So we take our shim piece, like so. One hand holding it in place, and the other hand working that tape around the bar. And making sure all of your gaps are covered. So you see the tape comes right up to the bottom edge of the STI body there, covering up all the gaps. So the hood's going to roll back and hide all of that. And in order to keep that same degree of rotation I talked about around the bars, as we come around, we're then going to take the tape and we're going to go cross over back and we're going to run and wrap over the tops of the bars, heading this way. Again, that's going to be the tendency. Your hands on the tops, and tendency to roll this way. So that's the way we want to wrap the bars. And again, we're going to try and wrap this with an eye to making sure that when the hoods are rolled back, we're covering up everything. Yeah, you can eyeball this step, or this is also a good point to get. Yes, you can roll the tape back and say, okay, does it really look like it's going to cover everything? If not, you just back yourself off. However many laps you've made around, and you just try and work that a little tighter and snug. Keeping an eye on both sides, top, bottom, we're going to cover everything up. And then we continue our taping. Again, keeping on that 50% overlap. There's tension on the tape. Again, coming around the curve on the tops here. Keeping the gap around 50% on the outside edge of the curve. The inside, it's probably going to be a lot more. On the inside of the curve, it might be overlapped by like 75% or more, because this is a nice tight curve on most bars. Also, as we're doing this, we're coming close to the end. We want to keep an eye on where we stopped on the first side, so we can match that on the second. This you can do in a lot of ways. You can do it visually, you can get out a tape measure, measuring tape, something, or whatever way generally works good to you. I know roughly top of my hands will fit here, both sides, so I'm going to that point where it looks the same amount. I clamp my hand on this side of the bar, clamp my hand on that side of the bar. I think we're good. So the very last step is wrapping our tape around, and this is where the scissors come in, is as the tape is coming around, what we're actually going to see is we either stop it dead, and then we would have the whole width of this tape that we should cover up with electrical tape and finishing tape, because any gap you can catch with your finger and unravel. So the scissors is so we can cut off first whatever extraneous tape we have, and second so we can cut this off at an angle, creating a triangular tip on the end, so that when it wraps around, it all comes up flush. And I'll show you what that looks like here. Just a sec. Pull the bar off for a second. So as the bar comes around, what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and stop the flush point. But so the tape comes around, and we want to make sure that the tape is cut off at a straight edge. So if we imagine a line starting from this corner here and ending up in this corner, cutting diagonally. When we wrap around, everything will be all nice and tight up against this far edge. And if you can hear that in the background, I apologize for my ghetto neighbors who, or whoever's driving by, apparently feeling they need to play Lords at incredible volumes with the bass pumped up. Alright, so it looks like we've got that all lined up. I'm just going to pull the bars off again and show you real quick, up close forward, how that came out. So, here's that edge I talked about. You can see it's basically as it wraps around, keeping that nice and tight. That proceeds under the bar, like that. And then when we cover it up with the tape, it's all going to be covered so that there's no gap whatsoever that your fingers could catch on or anything could catch it, so that the tape would unravel. So, once more back onto the bike. Hold that in place. After we've, like I said, done all that hard work, wrapping it nice and tight. And now we grab our electrical tape. Try and find the edge of the electrical tape. And just like the handlebar tape itself, we're going to wrap in the direction that we wrapped. And get the edge of the electrical tape lined up with the edge of the handlebar tape. It's all nice and pretty. Wrapping all the way around. Okay, nice and tight. This electrical tape, it's got some elasticity as well, in keeping with all the lines where the tape ends on the handlebar. And we're going to go around 2 or 3 times, depending upon what your personal preference here. I don't worry about saving weight on the bike here. Going for comfort, going for a lasting tape job that you won't have to redo. Okay, that's about 3 times around. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut the tape down here so that the seam of the tape ends underneath the bar, where you are least likely to catch it with a fingernail or something. Alright, slight interruption there. So we have the electrical tape on there finished off, cut and finish underneath the bar so we don't catch on anything. And now comes out that finishing tape. Pull the backing off of that. This is nice and sticky stuff. And we're going to line this up so I can actually read it saying gel while I'm sitting on the bike. Kind of got to figure out where you want to start, because again, you want the seam to finish underneath here. You can always cut off if you a little bit if you're miss it by a bit, but you don't want to cut off and lose a lot of this material. Again, this is helping keep the tape in place, so we don't want to skimp here. We're not worried about saving weight. So start here, start wrapping around nice and tight. Make sure it's smoothing it down as I go, keeping the same seam all the way around. And pass all the way around. And we're going to have just enough tape to finish underneath. Like so. And look all around. Everything looks good. Roll the brake hood back. Yep, that covers everything up. Pull the bar off, show you. And we have successfully taped the bar. Got our nice uniform edge all the way around. Our seam on the bottom where we're not going to see the tape map doesn't overlap right. And you can kind of see that nice uniform, about a 1/2 inch overlay all the way around, much tighter on the inside, but no gaps. Nice and tight, all good. And there we are. Taping your handlebar.